You are listening to Cemetery Confessions, the world's #1 goth talk podcast.
Hello and welcome back to Cemetery Confessions. This month we are going to be taking a look at the future of the spaces we inhabit within goth culture. As a lived experience, a goth space can be anything from our bodies to our rooms and our homes to the rest of the world. Wherever we are, wherever we move, we can make strange these spaces and bring forth our identity and our being into the world around us. But perhaps there is no more saliently significant space than the goth club. These are the spaces in which we gather ritualistically, sharing our own individual rituals and partaking in broader communal ritual, making these spaces sacred in a sense. And in many ways, these spaces are concomitant with the goth experience and with goth identity as we co-create and reify the emotional and metaphysical aspects of goth into physical, tangible experiences. This year, however, and obviously, these complex sets of actions, symbols, signifiers, and embodied and extended co-creations have shifted from in-person spaces, physical club spaces, to virtual ones. And for the foreseeable future, this is going to be the way that we primarily experience and partake in goth community. So what I'd like to do on this episode is to talk through and explore what it is like to experience this shifting fabric of the goth space, and who is more integral to the creation of these spaces than DJs and promoters. So on this episode, I am pleased to be joined by Sean and Mary, DJs out of Texas, who run most notably on Twitch currently, the Sisters of Mondays, to help us think through and look at the narrative of the goth community and how that is shifting in time. So as always, I am the Count. I'm here with my co-host Trey. Let's start off with introductions. If you don't mind, tell us a little about yourself, when you were first introduced to goth, and a bit about your history with the community.
You go first.
Well, for me, I got into goth. It was in 6th grade. I wasn't ever really into like gory horror that was like, really popular in the 80s. I was just more into old gothic films, just like, just Addams Family and Monsters. But I was really obsessed with Tim Burton films. But I remember the first time I really saw goths was on this vampire documentary I was watching. And they visited this goth club in LA, and I was just...
Was it about real life vampires?
Yeah, they kind of touched on that.
I think I've seen
that.
Yeah.
And I was just amazed at just how the guys dressed, how beautiful the women were, and I just knew I was hooked, because just everything that I ever really liked was just kind of in this little group community, And and at that time I was just in the really basic stuff, like just 9 Inch Nails, Type O Negative. And then I picked up my first Cleopatra compilation called Dark Noise. And
not one I had.
And it was just amazing. It had like a lot of really great bands on it. First time I ever heard Christian Death or Specimen, Leather Strip. It was just a great compilation. And I just learned like more and more from picking up more and more compilations from Cleopatra. I guess I got started DJing many years later. After high school, I went to my first goth club in Elysium at the time it might have been Atomic Cafe up in Austin. And then when I later found out that San Antonio actually had a goth night, and that's when I had met my friend DJ Eli Bat.
Oh yeah,
and we just had very similar tastes in music. It was early 2000s, so what was really popular was just EBM synth pop, and it was all the stuff that I sort of
Covenant, VNV,
and I accepted that was like part of the scene because that's just what the scene was at the time. But I knew, and I really pined for just like the really old sound. Like I really wanted to hear like Sisters of Mercy or some Joy Division, some Susie. And then when I started DJing with Eli, we worked really hard to bring, goth rock and death rock to San Antonio and really separate ourselves from what was really popular down here. And it took us many years, but we eventually got like a pretty decent following.
This probably makes me a bad interviewer, but I've seen photos of you playing bass for something. What was that all about?
Oh yeah, I play bass for a few bands. My friend Greg's project Inherent, this local band called Emily's Gone Mad. Okay. I guest DJ'd for Ending the Vicious Cycle, I think a band from Dallas. And today I play for Death Loves Veronica.
Oh, nice. Okay, cool.
Slap
sorry?
Oh, I said slap of the bass. Sorry.
So what about you then, Mary?
So I grew up in rural Texas, like West Texas, like Conservativeville, USA, and I got into, I started out as like into punk, and I've always been like this morbid. I grew up this like morbid child. My mom used to call me a devil child growing up, and I was always
charming.
Very charming. And I remember when I was younger, I was obsessed with because I'm 31, so I was born in '89, but I was obsessed with Nightmare Before Christmas, and I would watch it over and over and over again. And I didn't know what goth was then. I didn't know what the music was. I was like a kid, and I'd always try to get my cousin to play, will you watch Nightmare Before Christmas with me? And she was like, no. And, and then later on, in 2000, it was like 2004, I was like 13, 14, whenever I, this was like when DSL was we just got DSL internet and stuff. And I'd found High School Football Hero by AFI on my dad's Napster account. Okay. And that was like the first punk song I ever like really heard and was like, holy shit, I love this. And then like from that, it was just snowballed, and I was just like, oh my God, I love this music. And then I was like really into like the 77 punk bands, Sex Pistols, all the 77, I said all the 77 men, Sex Pistols, all I said. But I remember seeing like Susie and the Banshees and was like, this doesn't sound like any of the punk bands. And I mean, Susie and the Banshees was like kind of my first got into goth music. I was like really into AFI in the early 2000s. Like I like every album, but
my spouse was in love with Davey Havok for years, like all through high school.
Oh, for sure. Like I remember like as a teenager, like seeing Davey Havok and like his makeup and stuff. I'm like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful man I've ever seen in my life, And I know. I remember I was listening to like Loveline. Remember Loveline, and Davey Havok was on there, and this girl called in, was like, oh, I like this guy. He's into goth music. He dresses the part and all that. I'm really into it. And Davey Havok was like, ask him if he listens to Sisters of Mercy. If he doesn't listen to Sisters of Mercy, then he's not goth. And I was like, okay, well, I gotta listen to Sisters of Mercy. But it's kind of hard because my mind is so like all over the place. I started with punk, and I was like really into punk, and but also like was really drawn to like the darker, bands, Discharge, Crass. I wasn't like into that clown oi oi pogoing punk. I was like into like the darker stuff. But yeah, so I was always kind of like the token goth in the punk scene in Austin. But yeah,
So, do you consider rudimentary peni punk or death rock?
It's kind of a fine line, because I always consider them punk, because it was like before I really knew what death rock was, but now I consider them, death rock. I would consider them like punk death rock, I guess. I mean, it's kind of the same thing, but yeah.
Okay.
I like dark punk.
Dark punk, yeah, kind of dark punk. But I moved to Austin when I was 17, so I didn't really have a scene at all until I was like 17, 18 is when I packed my bag like small town boy. I had packed my bags and I moved to the city and got corrupted even more. And it was great. But I'd been to like one punk show when I was 16 in Abilene, Texas, and I didn't really get to experience everything until I was 18, moving to Austin. I'm always jealous of people like that grew up having goth friends in school. I never had that. I hung out, with the druggies and stuff.
Yeah. And then when did you get into DJing then?
I used to guest DJ on this pirated radio station in Austin in the early 2000s, in like 2009, 2010, called Chaos Radio. My name was DJ Night Train, and because I drank Night Train.
Okay.
Very punk rock, right? Yeah. And so I would like guest DJ with them on that and play, but industrial and goth rock and stuff like that. I didn't DJ for a long time after that, and I kind of started getting back into it when I moved to San Antonio. So I kind of really been DJing seriously for only about, I guess, going on 3 years now. I used to hang out with ravers too, back in the early 2000s. Cause I like house music too. I don't.
Yeah, fair enough.
I'm not, I'm not ashamed. But I remember like their DJ. DJing is an art for sure. But I remember trying to like beat match with vinyl records, and it's like the hardest shit.
Yeah, there's a lot more technicality as the norm in house and some of those genres.
Absolutely, it's harder than people think. People are like, "Oh yeah, I'm just gonna DJ." Well, whatever.
I think I saw this on TikTok too, but somebody was DJing and some drunk woman came up and was complaining, and she was like, "I can do this better. I'll do it myself." And then it was just a video of her being like, "Oh, I thought you just had a playlist and you just push play," and the music was just off. So everyone in the club was just looking at her, and she's up there completely confused and embarrassed trying to DJ because she thought she could do better.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So what's your local scene like then? I know the scene is different now, and we'll get into that, but how many people do you get to turn out to events? What's the music like? What's the community like? That kind of thing.
We're small down here, but very dedicated. Everybody knows everybody.
And really nice and welcoming.
Yeah,
people.
We definitely try to just be a lot more open and welcome, because I've been to just a lot of clubs traveling, across the country, and I was just never a big fan of just being so elitist and unfriendly that it just left people like with a bad taste in their mouths about the scene and the culture, and it's like that's not what we should be about. At the very least, we need to just educate people and not talk down on them because they don't know like this or that.
Unless they're, being a douchebag about it.
Yeah, but I would say like our biggest event is when we do 1313 once a month. That turns out about, 200, 300 people.
Oh, wow.
It's a big night. Everybody comes out for 1313.
Yeah, that's our big night. We also do Coven. Eli mostly does Coven with special guest DJs. And that's more of like the sort of industrial synth wavy night.
And then we have Propaganda, which is like punk.
Yeah.
And
Eli does a lot of these nights. He does Propaganda, which is mostly punk and indie stuff and death rock, goth rock stuff.
That's cool to hear he's still doing things, because I used to have a DJ podcast called The Requiem, and he was get a DJ on there every month for 2 or 3 years, I think.
Mm.
Cool.
So it's cool to hear that he's still doing stuff.
Oh, definitely.
I haven't talked to him in a while, but yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, actually, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say he's doing the Twitch thing now, so he's got his own channel, Eli Back.
Oh, is he? Shit.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
I'll have to check that out. I didn't realize.
Yep.
I just saw the other day you made that post about being at Wave Gothic Treffen. So I did, unrelated to the ass part of that. I did want to ask, like, because I always love hearing about people who have gone to that event, but just in general, what's the experience like, or how different are the scenes from there? Yeah.
So I've been to Mara Luna and Wave Gothic Treffen, which were okay. So Mara Luna is fucking amazing. Wave Gothic Treffen is fucking amazing. They're both just the best time you'll ever have. Like, everybody there is like family, and everybody is so just happy to be there, drinking so heavily. It was like, I cried when I left. It felt like home. You know what I mean? It was amazing. And, oh my God, it's the best. I saw so many good bands, and, it's just like, you have to go. Like, you have to go. It's just this big sense of community. I remember at Mara Luna in particular, I saw DAF and about shit my pants. I almost peed myself. It was so amazing. And there were like we were all just like really just like into it, and there's these Germans behind me, and they're like, yeah, and they're just like hugging me, and we're like hugging, we're like passing drinks around. We had like this big like 32-ounce gin and tonic, and I gave it to this guy, and he drank it, and he was like, oh no, but we were just all so happy, and it was like just the best time. And then Wave Gothic Treffen is just, I mean, it is so tiring, staying up till 7 a.m, going to sleep for 2 hours, waking up at 11 a.m, doing it all over again, running from place to place to see bands. It's just, I mean, you got to go. We got a hotel for next year, and I'm holding out till the bitter end, and until they tell us we can't go, I'm keeping that hotel. But it's just, it's indescribable. I love it.
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
Yeah. So getting into kind of the theme of the episode, I think I'm going to call it something about the future of goth spaces, something around that idea, and kind of looking into the future and the past and what's going on now, and talking about how the way we experience the goth community has changed and how it's changed. Now, I know some people didn't have a local scene to begin with, so maybe it's not that different for them, but for those of us who do, I guess we can just kind of start with, what has the experience of moving from in-person DJing to DJing on Twitch been like, and what are the differences and similarities in that kind of space?
I feel a lot more free to spin the stuff that I would really like to spin, because I guess there's just more people, I guess, with our taste, out there than locally,
Right.
Here locally, especially, just down in Texas, we got to play a good portion of the hits to get people, to get out of their chairs,
You gotta put on Lucretia My Reflection to get people going.
Every once in a while, but we always...
I mean, there's also the fact that you don't need to get them out of their chairs on the Twitch thing. Doesn't matter if they get up and dance or not. You just gotta keep them on listening and in chat.
And that sometimes might even make it more difficult, because a real big part of DJing is reading the crowd. Yeah. And you can't really do that too much on Twitch, except for how many viewers you have, and just like engagement through chat.
People are talking about recipes in the chat. It's that's. But like I always tell it's like a blessing in disguise. It's been really amazing. We've been able to like connect with so many people, and like, make so many friends around the world. I'm like, it's as much as it's been a negative thing, it also has had a lot of positive in our life. And I feel like our listeners, the people, our friends, and our, you know, our avid listeners have great taste, and they want to hear the obscure shit. They want to hear the new stuff. They don't want to just hear, you know,
classics.
They don't want to hear the same shit all over and over again.
Yeah, so that aspect's been really good. I enjoy it.
Spiritual cramp. No.
Trey and I are very much the same way, which is often not a frustration, but we generally, when we go out together, comment on, you know, oh, well, okay, here we go. Here's the required EDM set. And then, okay, here we go with the sister songs again.
Yeah. Yeah. There's just a lot of, you know, I usually go out to clubs and stuff more for the socialization and
absolutely.
Also to support the local scene, rather than necessarily to hear the music, because, you know, like you guys already mentioned a little bit earlier, the EBM and quote unquote dancey stuff that gets played ad nauseum isn't really up my alley as much. And I actually don't enjoy dancing to it. I enjoy dancing to something with a little bit more interest and creativity in the beats that I can interpret, rather than just it's hammering you bounce, 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 and that's all you have to do. So, I go down that route.
I like the old school EBM too. When I, you know, listen to EBM, I don't like the newer, like the early 2000s, what you would call EBM industrial.
Well, I mean, the old EBM is also very, related to punk in a lot of ways as well. So
absolutely.
They were still pretty experimental.
Yeah.
Angry, heavy, you know, I like that.
Yeah.
Something with substance, like you said, Trey, you know.
Definitely later in 2000s, just the EBM and goth clubs in general just went just total ravey. And I couldn't even stand it anymore. Like, a lot of the songs just sound like pop music. And I was like, what is goth or gothic about any of this? Like, I just didn't like it.
That's kind of where the whole, I guess, cybergoth and industrial dance movement was sort of a merger.
That's when it was
of
popular.
The trance scene with the industrial scene. And because the trance scene had, you know, more people who were club kids and used to going out to clubs and bars and things, I think they kind of took over as far as the aesthetic and the musical tastes. They wanted it to be more similar to the raves that they were coming from.
Yeah.
So that was definitely a thing.
I remember the first time I was working overnight at McDonald's and some kids came in that I don't remember what time it was, but they came in and I thought they were cybergoths because they had on neon and the fuzzy leg warmers and the whatever. So I started trying to have a conversation with them and then realized that they had come from a rave. And I had never been to a rave before. And I was like, oh, so that's where it came. That's why this is
all that stuff came right out of rave.
That's why you have the pacifiers.
Yep.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
That's why you're so stoned. Yeah. I know we're talking about things that have changed, but it is nice that some things haven't changed. I'm sure you two saw this, or all three of you saw this. That we can all still find things to bitch about Valorcan's Christian death.
Absolutely,
that's still the same, you know.
Yeah.
Valor, what a loser, man.
I mean, he was a good supporting guitarist, but he couldn't have taken the lead.
Yeah, I mean, I would have a better opinion of him if he would have called his project just something else, even just something very similar to Christian Death. But to call it that, and even though he had Roz's Blessing and all that, it just still didn't make it Christian Death, you know, how it really was.
It wasn't the same.
I mean, that's the problem with all bands that have major changes, especially in a lead. When the band really changes direction and feel, it's hard to conceive of this band with the same name and with that legacy, but it's not the same. They're playing different stuff and the music's all different and the themes are all different. So it's definitely hard to come to grips with that.
Yeah, with someone so important, you know.
Yeah. And like losing such a, you know, iconic like singer, you know, lead singer, I feel like in any band, when you lose the main singer, you know, it's like, well, why keep going? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
a lot of people do because, you know, you have the name recognition. So you're going to have people buying it because they know Christian Death or AC/DC or Van Halen.
Like you're reaching for money.
Yeah. I mean, AC/DC and Van Halen kind of did good afterwards. I'm not going to talk about AC/DC.
Let's bring in some more classic rock.
Classic rock.
Classic rock.
Rock.
Speaking of the hashtag scamdemic.
Oh god.
No, but
It's plandemic.
Plandemic.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Get it right.
I went to blogspot.fakevirus.com and it's actually scamdemic. So no, anyway. So on the train of what he was complaining about, I have seen that some events are actually starting up with in-person stuff where they're having you have to wear masks and social distance and stuff. Like, for example, there was an article about a night in Kansas. I don't remember the name of it, but they have been doing in-person events. And then I tried to find it again. I couldn't find it, but on Facebook, there was an event, I think for the Empty Bottle, which is in Chicago. Next month, they were having a few goth bands play a show at the venue. And I have also seen, like, without masks and social distancing, mainstream clubs doing like just having raves and stuff with just all these people packed into a building, and that's terrifying.
Yep.
But how do you feel about, should we start trying to push for doing events in person again?
Not yet.
No.
I mean, it's just not if you
can't dance, you can't dance. Like,
well, I mean, that's here.
Yeah.
It might be different in other places, but like they are starting to
You have a
open up
small-
in Texas. I think the
Are
governor
you in a
said,
small venue there?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Okay.
And I think they can only be at like half capacity right now.
Mhm.
Quarters, Illinois. I think we're at 25% is our max capacity here.
We're
Really?
at 75% in the restaurants because I work in a restaurant, and
Ugh.
I know it's. Oh my god, I hate everyone.
And I feel like restaurants, I mean, working in restaurants are already bad, but I feel like the people that are eating in restaurants now are the worst.
Oh,
The people that would go.
worst. They're the literal worst people. I don't even get me started because I just like gotten so jaded since going back to
Yeah.
work. I've been like, fuck y'all, man.
Yeah.
And then like you
I
think
get it.
people would be more giving because I like when we order food, like people, you think would people be more giving, more understanding, but they're not. They don't care. All they care about themselves.
Are people at least giving substantially more in their tips?
No, no.
Ugh, that's gross.
We're risking
That's really
our
gross.
shit. We're risking our well-being to wait on you, and most people don't care. So I've gotten but San Antonio is like, my boss told me, is like the worst tipping city in
Oh wow.
Texas, maybe America.
Isn't San Antonio super liberal?
It is. We're in a liberal city.
Yeah,
That doesn't mean generous
But-
tippers, though.
Yeah.
You show
But I mean,
rise.
the cost of living is really cheap. Getting in the clubs is like practically free.
Yeah, we're spoiled. People
Yeah,
are
very
spoiled here.
very spoiled here. So I think that just goes with the not tipping very well.
Yeah.
Also,
And especially with the situation right now, your restaurant population is self-selecting for people who are on the selfish side, because those are the people who are going
Yeah.
out to eat in public. Everybody else is trying to
Yeah.
protect their neighbors by staying in and not, going to
Yeah.
restaurants. So you're going to have
yeah.
an increase of selfish population just in general.
We haven't been to eat in a restaurant since March. I mean, since February, probably. You know?
Yeah, I've gone out to eat a couple times, but it's always been, with like outdoor seating.
Yeah.
I've done more takeout than eating in, but I've definitely done a couple of sitting out on a patio in open air situations, but with masks, except when you're actually eating.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
good.
well, I know if I ordered food from a delivery service, my tips are way up. So if I was actually in a restaurant, I'd be like, "Here, have my car."
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I don't know. I generally agree. I think the idea, I mean, anything in person right now scares the shit out of me, and I feel really conflicted about seeing events happening now. I guess if you're gonna do it with any culture, I guess goths maybe would be the best place to start, since with the dancing, we already kind of stay away from each other anyway.
Yeah.
And if you do have a bigger venue, it's not usually packed. It's just a few. I mean, in Chicago, like what does Nocturna get? 300 to 400 people?
It depends on the night. I'd say not on an average night on it. Well, I mean, over the course of the night, maybe I'd say at any one time during an average night, it's probably closer to 60 or 70, but that's at any one time during a standard night, not a Halloween or Valentine's Day. So I'm sure over the course of the, 4 or 5 hours that the club runs, they might have a sum total head count.
There's usually a lot of space in there.
Yeah, there's usually.
I was just trying to remember what Sarah had said on social media about like ticket sales, but
yeah, I don't know, but it just doesn't feel that packed in there on a normal night, but it also doesn't feel empty. So that's why I'd say, 60, 70, given the size of the venue. But that's totally out of my ass, so I have no idea what the real numbers are.
I feel like people, when they get drunk, their inhibitions go out the window, and they're like, let me give you a hug. Oh, no.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, I could certainly say
well, that's the thing. When there's alcohol, I feel like it's going to make it, who's going to follow rules, once you start drinking.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I can definitely say that as a someone who likes to go out and dance, if I could get 6 feet of space around me at all times when dancing, that would be heaven.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing. Amazing.
What's messed up about them opening in Texas, though, is that there's no dancing allowed.
Yeah.
We're living in the Footloose town.
Footloose.
Yeah, where you can't dance. And it's like, what? Dude,
do an angry dance in a warehouse.
Well, I think
sit at a table and drink. And
my suspicion is that that's probably just an assumption based on the standard club dancing, the grinding, and the very close together dancing, rather than just dancing on your own. But they can't necessarily specify that, so they just do a blanket, no dancing.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I kind of get it. I get why people would want to, because Sarah was telling me today, my spouse was telling me today, I think you need to get out more, because I've been so sequestered in my house that literally anytime we just went to Dairy Queen and I was getting anxious just having to drive to Dairy Queen. So I get people are having to try and find new ways of having quality time with other people. I've tried to make some changes. I've been reaching out to some close friends, trying to build like deeper relationships and communicate more often, because there is something about that real-time feedback and interaction with other people that when you don't have it, because I'm also pretty introverted and I stay to myself, but not having it for such a long time. And it's funny because we did an episode a few years ago talking about, Trey, I think you were on that one. We're talking about the future of Goth. Yeah, you were. Future of Goth relating to the internet and being too much online, and whether or not that would be a problem. And I feel like, at least for me personally, what this has kind of shown me is that that sort of boomer fear that we're all just going to sit in our houses with VR headsets on getting sucked off by robots isn't really going to happen, because it's just not the same. Well, you want to get sucked off in a bathroom at a club.
To be fair, though, we don't have filleting robots yet. Maybe if filleting robots actually came out.
like Awesome-o.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From South Park. The pleasure hole.
I mean, there is teledildonics, so we can start doing more teledildonics. That works out pretty well.
I talked to my friend the other day, Helen, our friend, and I was like, I am sick and tired of seeing my coworkers. I don't want to see them. I miss seeing friends, and you take for granted those times that you said no to hang out with somebody because you didn't feel like going, which
I'm very introverted as well, and I definitely need that person-to-person communication that you just can't get through social media or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm an extroverted introvert.
Yeah, I love being inside, but I would like to see my friends, more often.
And I've gained some weight, so I'm ready to get back to dancing and go, lose a little bit of this. Been eating too much Beyond Burgers.
Well, we gotta pay a little bit more attention to Mick Jagger and David Bowie and go out dancing in the street.
Yeah, dancing in the street. Oh. Doesn't matter what you are. I love that video. It's so bad.
It is. It's terrible, but it's great.
I love that version without the music, where you just hear their feet stomping in the streets.
Oh yeah, that's
that
good.
One's the best.
So Sean, which club is it that you primarily DJ at or DJ'd at?
At the Amp Room.
Okay.
we also used to do it at the Thirsty Camel and sometimes at Faust.
All right. Yeah, I was out in Texas a year and a half ago, not last February, but the February before that, and I did go to Elysium one night.
Oh, okay.
That's my only experience out in that area, and it was a quiet night. I think it was right after they had the vampire ball the previous weekend or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So there wasn't a lot happening. I think I was the only one dancing, but it was nice. It was a nice little club.
Yeah, I sometimes guest DJ at Elysium. It's for the Dress to the Nines Gothic Ball.
Mm-hmm.
But I have noticed, though, that the turnout in Austin has just really declined over the years. It's been really sad.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I said, I've only been there that one time. I mean, the main drag with all the standard clubs was still hopping, but Elysium was not. Though I mean, I think it was like a Wednesday night club. So, I mean, having helped run a Wednesday night club in a small town, but still a college town for a few years, several years ago, I know how the turnout can be very scarce on those weekday nights.
Yeah, it could be iffy.
Well, in Austin, the scene is a lot of older older people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not many young goths in Austin. Austin's like a big punk city. I lived in Austin for many years, and I hardly ever went to goth clubs. I was like going to, Red 7, Emos, the Broken Neck. Those are like punk clubs.
Yeah.
I went to Elysium every once in a while, but there's a little big punk scene in Austin. But the goth scene's not that big. It's a lot of.
It's run by the old guard a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like they don't really play a whole lot of new music or even explore new genres. They're just still kind of in those older set lists.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely when I was there, it was a lot of classics. Though I started to feel that the DJ started tailoring the music a little bit more to my tastes as they realized what I was dancing to. Since I was the only one dancing, so it was kind of nice. But it was a lot of older stuff, 80s, 90s, swoopy type stuff, which is what I tend to dance to.
Swoopy. I like it. Well, I mean, they're great DJs in Austin, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think San Antonio is we definitely have a younger crowd. There's a lot of goths in San Antonio, Yeah,
we're not doing too bad.
Yeah, we got a pretty good scene.
Going back to Twitch, then, I did want to ask, because this kind of relates to differences between spaces, just how do you feel? And I think both of you have gone back and forth on this, but how do you feel about the, should you archive your stream or should you not archive your stream?
I totally understand where people are coming from about saving the streams or not saving the streams, actually, to avoid, I guess, copyright strikes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
The only reason that I keep mine up is I feel like, our channel's pretty new. We want to introduce our set lists and what we do to as many people as possible when we're not streaming. And
we do play a lot of obscure, not as well-known stuff. So when our streams get archived, it usually only cuts out like during like Susie or Paralysis Permanente, which is weird.
That's weird.
Yeah.
It's usually only like 2 or 3 songs with our sets, so it's not too bad.
I've heard some people argue that it's trying to put that on a in-person club thing onto the internet that they don't archive because that's part of the event. Like the being ephemeral in the first place is what makes the event interesting. And if you can, it's kind of the argument where people were like, well, if everything is online, no one's going to go to the club in person. It's kind of the same thing. They can just watch the video afterwards. They won't want to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
But I don't think that.
I still don't think people would ever just switch to Twitch and never go out again, unless they just really hate going out to begin with.
I mean, everybody we talk to is like, whenever everything's back to normal, we're going to just like hit it. We're going to go, out.
We still got a lot of people asking us to come back. And even the club, Amp Room, has been asking us to come back. And we're just like, we don't really feel comfortable, and we're doing all right on Twitch, so it's no big deal.
Yeah, we want to come back when it's
when it's really safe for everybody.
Yeah, when it's safe and we can dance and
kiss on the lips and all
Kiss
that.
on the lips.
Yeah.
Share drinks, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the reactions to so many people to this pandemic and this forced staying inside really do put the lie to that whole idea that people are just going to sequester themselves and not want to go out, because it's very clear. Everyone I've talked to, even people who, don't necessarily feel the energy to go out regularly to the clubs, they're getting stir crazy and are wanting to go out and are needing this outlet and this contact with other people. So I think a lot of that paranoia about that death of the in-person is it's discounting basically natural human experience.
Yeah.
Well, so if everything was safe to reopen, then do you feel like you would stop Twitch completely and go back to in-person DJing, or try and split I assume it would be really difficult to do both, or maybe stream it while you're at the club or something. Like, how would you?
Well, that's what we were thinking of doing. Really what we need is just a really decent internet connection at the club.
Yeah.
And even better if we can just get like an Ethernet cable or something. I don't want to stop. I love Twitch DJing.
It's been really great. Yeah.
We met a lot of amazing people, and I love hearing what other people are spinning in other communities and other parts of the world.
Yeah. And we have, we're going to, once we do get to go to VGT, we're going to meet up with a bunch of people, and that's awesome. Exciting. I love people. So I love meeting, especially in our subculture, I'm always down to meet people. So this has been really great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think the online DJing and the Twitch thing can still serve a good purpose even after the clubs reopen. Maybe even just like a testing ground for, to try out new things, see what the response is without having to gamble with your club patrons. Just throw stuff out there and see what you get from Twitch, and maybe integrate it in your regular set or not, but have that be a more free form kind of experimental space.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, yeah, it's interesting now because I know a local night here called Darkwave. They were, most of the time, he would stream the event on his Twitch while it was happening, and it was basically like a camera from the balcony down to the dance floor. But anytime I would tune in, it was never, you only ever had a few people in there. And so, but it's totally different now. And I wonder, who was Kate Muir was saying they were on Obscura Undead, and they were talking about how the people who are doing really well right now, and I think you two are doing really well, is DJs who have a distinct personality, because you can't really sit in a booth behind a wall where nobody cares about who you are.
Yeah.
And not everybody does that, but some clubs are set up like that. And those people are doing really well, because I have seen some Twitch streams where it's literally just a dude sitting on his couch and staring at a laptop for 3 hours. I'm like, why would I watch? Why do I care? Mm-hmm. So it's going to be interesting to see how people can try and incorporate the two, or do both separately, or and then the other thing is you have, like you guys said, you have people tuning in from all over the world, not just your local scene. So it's a different dynamic as well to what you would get at a bar or a club.
At the club, we get a lot of people coming in to see the freak show. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
We get like a lot of people, because we're on the strip here, and it's like a lot of dude bros, coming in requesting Disturbed and stuff,
Yeah.
So like doing on Twitch, it's all our, no, it makes me down with the sickness.
What did that one God, no. What did someone request that I laughed in their face? I couldn't help it. It was told, I didn't want to be rude, but when they requested it, I just burst out laughing.
What was it?
What was
like
it?
Rascal Flats or something like that?
Rascal Flats. No.
Oh my God.
No, it was
Johnny Cash.
It was, they wanted to hear something from the Queen of the Damned soundtrack.
Oh.
And then I like the Korn song
Korn.
or something.
At least they're king on vampires to some degree.
Yeah.
Still.
Detra's the best at like, like
what?
You're doing so well.
I'm the best at laughing. No one can match my laughter.
The snarky, I love it.
The snarky.
It's a good thing, honey. It's a good thing. Yeah, I love it.
But I couldn't help it. Like I just started laughing.
But
I think I felt bad after though.
Oh, sweet angel. But like our community is in our stream, so it's like they got good taste, so they never,
Yeah.
we get like
Well, I'm sure you get people from, I mean, I watch them. I'm not local. I'm sure you get people from all over, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Brazil, Australia, Germany, UK. I think we had somebody from Russia too.
Yeah, like I'm always blown away like who stays up to watch us because we're on pretty late for Europe.
Yeah, people like make sure they're awake for our stream, which is awesome. It makes me feel
Wow.
good. People like.
Well, you two, I mean, you put on a great show, and I mean that kind of goes back to the personality thing. I feel like as a DJ, you kind of have to make up the difference that you would have, because if you're in a club, you go and you talk to your friends, right? Or you dance and you hang out with the people that you know. But when you just have a single chat room and like you said, you have people from all over the world, and I have no idea who half of these or fewer of these people are. You're not going to have like a personal catch up, have a nice conversation, here, hey, I just, here's what I put up my ass last night, whatever. It's not like, so I feel like it has to be more of a spectacle on the screen because you don't get the, seeing your friends kind of thing. And YouTube like do a great, like it's so entertaining to watch.
Oh, definitely make a spectacle of myself. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely very visual just streaming on Twitch, whereas, at a club, DJs are hidden behind a booth, kind of away from everything.
Yeah.
And it's made me like, when we first were doing it, I would sometimes be, pretty casual and, just wear my casual clothes. And now it's like every time we DJ, I make sure and like put it dressed to the nines, because people are visual,
especially online.
And especially online. And I cannot be serious to save my life sometimes.
Yeah,
like,
but this is the same way we act.
I think so.
This is the same way we acted though when we were DJing in the clubs.
Oh yeah,
because I mean we just love to dance. We love to. I get way too tipsy and I feel the music and
like me at the club, I'd be like playing a song and just yell, scream, singing it like an idiot.
Yeah, if anything, I'm probably holding back on Twitch because I don't want to look. I feel like all eyes are on me or something, and I kind of feel a little embarrassed, like just dancing so much. But
sure, yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Yeah, it is different, like when you have a camera, right? And you're not in the dark.
Yeah, so like I'm not really dancing to put on a show, but I want to dance.
But people love it when you do, so you definitely they like the Detra shake, the shimmy, the
yeah, what was it? I don't remember, Mary. You were part of one of those Twitch things where they had a whole bunch of DJs on recently, and I can't remember what it was called, but I think you played one of the songs from the album we're going to review. And you were pulling these like black metal faces for half the song, which was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, Mark Splatter calls it the droid song, the droid band, because it sounds like the Star Wars droid. Yeah.
We love it though. It's great.
What was it? It was we both DJ'd for Baraka with DJ Winter.
Oh yeah.
Mysteria.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think. And I played the funeral medieval
fundraiser for cancer. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's right. There's so many different things going on. It's hard to remember what the fuck.
Yeah. It gets it gets overwhelming a little bit. You know?
We get asked to guest DJ and help raise funds for good causes, which we're totally happy to do.
I love doing that.
There's a whole lot of them.
Well, so how, kind of segueing off that, how, you don't have to be specific or anything, but how hard has it been or easy has it been to adjust from monetizing stuff online as opposed to doing in-person gigs, and like how supportive has the community been as far as that's concerned?
We definitely get like a few individuals that tip us really well. Like they'll give us like $20.
Especially when we were unemployed at the beginning.
Yeah, at the very beginning, people were
buying our groceries, literally.
Extremely generous.
Oh, wow.
And we had both stopped working once it all started, and we couldn't DJ either, so we had like zero income.
Yeah.
And people were
keeping us fed,
extremely
literally.
supportive, and they were buying our groceries, and it really helped out.
And now we're back to work, so it's
so we don't push for the tips as much anymore because we really don't need the money. We know people are really hurting, and
we're just glad people show up.
If people are listening, then that's what's important.
And we do make a little bit from Twitch. I mean, it's not much.
It's nothing, and most of it's going to be taken out in taxes, anyways. But still.
Which we are kind of on the fence because we have ads play. Oh, Babadook. The cat's crying. I know, honey. Oh. We do have ads play on our streams, which is, we're kind of like,
well, that's just, I think that's comes with just being an affiliate.
Yeah.
You have to, I think you can't get rid of that unless you subscribe, right?
Yeah. And with, the affiliate, we get to do cool stuff like make icons and stuff for people to share. And
right,
I think it's kind of like, just fun engagement for people.
Yeah.
It is cool to see, because I've used your icons in other streams, but it's cool to see, like, be in a completely different goth stream and see someone spamming icons of like, oh, I know what DJ that's from this other thing.
It's cool.
It's real weird. Yeah.
I love it.
And it's, I don't know, because, I mean, I don't think there's any, I mean, maybe there are, but I feel like there aren't any goth DJs who, or really any kind of part of the goth community where someone does that full time. I think everybody has a day job or whatever, and then does that for like just a supplemental thing, but mostly just because they are part of the scene. So I saw a few days ago that Tomorrow's Ghosts, which is it's a festival it's at where Whitby Gothic Weekend is, but they split off from that festival in, what was it? I looked it up, 2018, I think, because there's this whole drama around Whitby Gothic Weekend being like a poser festival where they didn't have actual goth bands, and it was just people dressing up in costumes. So they were like, oh, well, let's do a real goth
the Instagram fest.
Yeah, so but that festival got their government gave them £55,000.
Wow.
Even though they couldn't have it this year. But I don't think that, I mean, I don't know, but I don't feel like music venues are getting a lot of governmental support in America, at least. And I'm really worried that they're not even, by the time we can do in-person events, they're not even going to exist anymore.
Clubs are dying. It's scary. I mean, the church closed, which was
the church was one of the most beautiful goth clubs here in Texas.
In Dallas.
Just an amazing venue.
The Lizard Lounge is what it's
the Lizard
called.
Lounge, and that closed a few months back, which is really sad because that was such a beautiful place.
And we actually, Elysium was they did a GoFundMe to keep Elysium open.
A benefit for Elysium.
Yeah, I mean, and then
our club got sold to new owners just recently too, the Amp Room.
We had decided, I mean, the old club owner, man, he said, he something else, but he sold the club. His ideas didn't align with ours, so we were distancing ourselves. Like he was, he said something during the
BLM protest.
During the protests.
Oh, great.
So I mean, we didn't really want to
about supporting the police, and we were like, no. But he sold it to some other people.
But I mean, honestly, I don't think it's. I definitely want to see some clubs stick around. Some amazing clubs around this country and around the world. But I think it could also be very beneficial just to have the old guard kind of be a bit displaced while like the new sort of genres get played and stuff.
I mean, it's, I remember, I don't know how often I don't read about this happening at all, but I remember probably more in the 90s, but the 2000s, I would read about clubs starting up that the building was owned by, like goth clubs was owned by the people, by the DJs and the promoters. Whereas now, like for like Neo, which was one of the longest running nights here, the building, there was always a tension between the people that were there and the people that owned the building, because the people that owned the building didn't give a shit. It was just a property they were renting out, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I feel like that's a problem more just how the government runs properties and how expensive stuff is than. So I don't know. I feel like that's always an issue, and it's just worse now because nobody can open anymore.
Our government's trash. I mean, like,
Yeah,
they're like giving these like small businesses that aren't small businesses, $3 million, and then actual small businesses and venues are just, they're dying. They're getting closed down, and it's like I feel like nobody got really any decent help during
before
the pandemic.
I was working for a company that does audio setup and stage setups for like concerts and corporate events.
My brother does that.
Yeah. And I mean, since the pandemic, I mean, everything was just closed, and I wasn't working, and but I mean, luckily I found something eventually. But yeah, like they just got zero help from.
Sad, man. It sucks.
Yeah. We're gonna have to take a page from rave culture and start organizing illegal like abandoned building events.
Hell yeah.
Sure.
Jesus.
Post a flyer to go to this location, to a payphone, call a number, get the location to go to the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think
drive into a cornfield.
Yeah.
I think Chase was doing that. He was gonna.
Yeah.
At some to be announced event like on Halloween or something.
Yeah. A friend of ours.
I don't know the details.
I mean, at least you guys have the.
Yeah, well, don't say it on the internet.
You guys at least have the client. You guys at least have the climate that you can manage that. Here we can only kind of do that maybe half the year.
Yeah, well, because it's summer. 11 months out of the year here. So it's
I mean, you just have to wear your layered Victorian vampire
dance harder
outfit, Yeah.
There you go.
So I did have a couple general like DJ questions, just because this kind of comes up and it's always interesting to me. And the first one was just sort of, that there's some universal songs that get played around every scene and requested all the time, that the DJs or people that go all the time kind of roll their eyes at. But I think most scenes have their like one specific song that gets requested way too often. So do you two have any I will never play? And actually there's a bunch of Writhe and Shine comics from the 90s about this like I will never play these songs. If you ask me to play Bela Lugosi's Dead, I'll stab you in the kidney kind of thing. Do you have any songs that you're like I never want to play this song?
There's a running joke, Dead Stars.
Yeah,
it's a popular one to refuse to play.
Anything by Combi Crust, I will not play.
That's a good moral stance.
Yeah.
I don't play combi anymore, but I definitely don't play Military Fashion Show like ever.
Oh no,
again.
and one anymore. Yeah, and one blew it. And I don't like to play VNV Nation. No, not really into that. And I don't like playing Joy Division either. Don't crucify me. Don't.
You see, I'm just tired of the one Joy Division that everybody plays. Like, I could hear no more of She's Lost Control, but I like some of the other ones. I like to see more obscure things of those bands that just they have a deep catalog, but only one song ever gets played.
Yeah.
That's like Paralyzed Age, Bloodsucker gets played a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as like classics go, like I think every good song deserves a spin every now and again. You just can't overdo it.
For sure. I mean, I love Lucretia, My Reflection.
Yeah, I'll play that forever. I'll do Bela Lugosi's Dead like once every 2 years, maybe.
You got to go to the bathroom for a while.
Yeah, when you got to shit.
Yeah. When I was DJing,
I would never not play it.
Yeah, I would basically I wouldn't play the same song by a band every week, even though people would ask for the same one. But I'd at least, when someone asked for Lucretia for the 100th time, I'm like, well, I'm going to play Ribbons or, something else by Sisters that isn't played as much.
Speaking of Sisters, who interviewed her? I think it was Skullgirdle on YouTube that did an interview with her and William, and she said that she would rather eat glass than play any Sisters of Mercy, which was hilarious. But I mean, she's been DJing for like 35 years or whatever. So I mean,
you gotta do what you gotta do.
I understand why she would be sick
survive.
of it.
Yeah,
I mean, she still does play Sisters. I hear Lucretia
She
every
does,
once in a
yeah.
while.
I know, that's why I thought it was funny, because when I go to Nocturnus, there always ends up being a sister song in there.
I'm waiting on our cease and desist letter from Andrew Eldritch.
Yeah, for Sisters of Mondays.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, honly, if he did.
Hey, that'd be
That
great
guy's fucking
promo
wild.
for us.
It would be, yeah.
The
would
station
frame
that
it.
Eldritch doesn't want you to hear. It's so
I would
cool.
frame that cease and desist letter.
That's major goth points right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. You could coast for the rest of your life on that.
Totally.
But yeah, and then I was going to ask, on the other side of that, are there any bands or songs that you really enjoy playing that might surprise people? I know you kind of said you play more obscure stuff. Are there any bands or songs that you try to get into a lot of your sets that you really enjoy?
There's definitely a branch of music that I just can't DJ because it just doesn't work, I guess, for people I think that are wanting to just sort of listen to DJs playing, you know? To me, they feel just so very personal. It could only be really enjoyed listening to by yourself. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I love like a lot of project records, like more Syphilitica, Black Tape for a Blue Girl, Lucia. But also, you know, I love the Smiths. I don't really ever DJ the Smiths because I just don't want to. But I like to listen to the Smiths.
I mean, I would dance the shit out of some project stuff. So if I was at a night, I'd definitely be out there for that stuff.
Yeah, I would too, though. But yeah, I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. People, every time I do, I think my early days, like people will be like, "I'm bored. Can you play something dancey?" All right.
That's a bummer. What did you say, Trey? You said swoopy music.
Swoopy.
I love that, like, ethereal stuff. I like that. I think you totally can dance to that. And I don't know. For a long time, when I was younger, I was like, this is more goth than goth music because it makes me feel sad, you know?
Oh yeah. I never felt more goth than just being in my room with like incense and candles and just blaring like Black Tape and just being morose about life in general. I mean, that was just peak goth right there.
Yeah, I'm also the South Park episode.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm kind of biased
Nice
because some of the first goth events I ever went to when I first started getting into were those early project fests. So,
Oh my god.
Oh man.
definitely got into that whole.
I wish
scene.
I went to Project.
So, kind of on that theme, then, is there, going forward in goth music, is there anything that you're really looking forward to right now, or you're really into?
There's a lot of like South American bands.
A lot of great stuff out of South America.
Eastern European bands.
Russian, Ukrainian post-punk is very big right now, really popular.
Well, yeah, that Molchat Doma song blew up on TikTok.
Oh my gosh, huge on TikTok.
It was so weird to see that bleed into goth clubs too. I was like, oh, this is strange. Okay.
And I've just seen an uptick in just people listening to, or even just Russian bands just posting on YouTube and other channels. And it's been really interesting. It's like, wow, Russia's very bleak from the sounds of it. Bleak. But it's great. It sounds amazing.
There's a pretty good punk and goth scene in Russia. I have a friend who he's a DJ up in Madison, but he did his PhD, I think, or maybe just master's. I don't remember, but in Russian subcultural analysis, and did some time over in Moscow, just going to like punk clubs and goth clubs for 6 months or something. And yeah, he had a lot of good things to say about that scene.
That's so cool.
Well, I think that's also why, similar to, and this information is just based on documentaries and stuff I've seen online. Obviously, I have a very limited view, but a lot of stuff coming out of Mexico is related to just the economic and political and social climate.
And Brazil.
And
Mexico City is amazing, though. The scene there is great, you know. And Funeral Medieval's from Mexico City. Yeah. I love Mexico City, but there's a lot of good music coming out of Mexico and, like I said, South America. But yeah, totally, for sure.
Yeah, I wrote down a couple. I know, like, I've been hearing people talk about being really into finding new death rock bands. Some people are really like, this is the best thing ever. I wrote down a few bands that I had found from Twitch streams, just for point of reference, because I thought it was fun. So Vision Video, The Seance, which I think I heard on your set, Mary. Exit Dust.
Exit Dust was on mine. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
They're great.
I just heard a band called Schrodinger the other night that I thought was really good.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody played a Pitch After Dark song, which was like, I looked them up on Bandcamp. It's like the perfect cliche high school goth music, which I liked a lot.
I love it.
Little Fantastic Partner.
Oh yeah.
And then a band called Vincas. I just heard them on Twitch stream last night. Yeah, Vision Video did an event last night with a bunch of bands, and they played, and I had never heard of them. And I thought it was like kind of southern rock kind of thing.
Oh,
yeah, I heard of them.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I heard on DJ Ms. Margot's stream the other day this band called DGA 95 from Santiago, Chile. They're so good.
Uh-oh.
Really, it's just like straight up death rock, and they have a song called 2020, which I thought was very bleak.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
They're awesome.
Of course. Well, yeah, as it is in real life.
Black Angel. Oh my gosh, I've been obsessed with Black Angel from the UK. Oh my gosh.
Okay, I haven't heard of them.
Oh, straight up goth rock, just really good.
Yeah, really good.
Really good.
Before we get into the album review, then I had a few. So I wanted to ask some just kind of not more general, but goth culture questions, because it's been a while since we've done that kind of thing, and I felt it was relevant because your sets are really focused in on like capital G goth, which is always nice because it's less common. At least, I mean, maybe not on Twitch now, but yeah, no, it's good. It's like I love it. I think people should definitely check it out, and I hope more people check out your streams after this episode goes up. But it seems like. So I wanted to ask about the term goth because it doesn't seem like it means what it used to mean, at least in the way it's perceived by other people in the community. Like, for example, I think in the 90s and the 2000s, the idea of the truest of true goths was the musician who refused the label.
Yeah.
So obviously Eldritch is the archetype for that, right? But
true goths don't call themselves goths.
Exactly, yeah. But actually it's funny because that hasn't really stopped goths from trying to justify and argue that he is goth. We reviewed a book last year called Evolution of Goth, and there was a whole chapter in there about which was an entire argument about why Eldritch is goth, even though he says he isn't, which was hilarious. But personally, I feel like that's the perception of the term or the label or whatever has changed, and now you have more of the even like the grumpy old goths are okay with the label. So I wanted to get your opinions on how either goth as a label or just the culture itself has kind of changed over the years, and maybe where you think it might be going, or if it's changed at all.
I can give my own perspective on just living through like sort of 90s goth, early 2000s, and like the third revival in like 2010. Which is still extending to this day. Yeah, I remember 90s, everyone was just very deny goth. It's like, I'm not goth. Even though they were uber fucking goth, just like full makeup, black lipstick. I'm not goth. I'm like, well, what are you doing then? And I just kind of rejected it because I just really embraced the label because I like the cliches. I'm just a big fan of coffins and dead trees and just gloomy music and wearing all black. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely more acceptance. And the term that was never really thrown around earlier on was just trad goth because it was just goth.
Hashtag trad goth.
But it was still. I felt like the scene was still trying to feel out what were the limits of what goth was and, what is it? It was still, just mixtures of like industrial and gothic rock and post-punk. But now I think we have like a very clear perspective of what's happened, the past, 4 decades. And that's what people would consider, just traditional goth as just being this and that.
Well, it's like people like nowadays, the younger crowd, they put themselves in like the specific labels, like I see like this big outpour, especially on Instagram, of like 18, 19, 20-year-old like trad goth looking people. They kind of pigeonhole themselves. A lot of people, it's like we kind of take from all genres, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But people tend to label themselves trad goth, graver, industrial, EBM, whatever, instead of taking from all the all the sub genres of goth. They kind of like put themselves in a pigeon. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I feel like this decade has just been a very big retrospective of what goth has done and accomplished musically, and it's almost perfected it in a way. You see just very specific sounds, and it's like, okay, I know their influences.
Yeah.
I get this, and I think it's been very pretty amazing to listen to. I think there've still been like a very great stream of steady bands these past 10 years.
Absolutely. It's been, I feel like we've been pretty been, what's the word, we've been spoiled. We've had a lot of good music.
Privileged.
Yeah. A lot of good music has been coming out.
Yeah, and Sean, I think what you said was right too, about that idea of goth being pushing the boundaries and trying to figure out that sort of I've always felt like goth is sort of based around questioning of the self and the constant, because of course you always have the what is goth debates, but I think that's part of the sort of the intellectual cachet or what's the word I'm looking for, whatever, this just the way that we interact with each other and we question what is it that we're doing and what is this and what are we and what is this and what is the world. And that, I think that's always been that discussion, that dialectical nature of community and not just existing, but asking why you exist. I think that's always been what has defined the culture and changed it over time. And I think that's what's interesting to me, at least.
Yeah, I think the early goths, the reason that they didn't want to label themselves goths is because they didn't want to constrain their ideas and how far that they could go in the things that they thought that they could do creatively. And I think it was meant to be that way. They didn't want to constrain themselves in a box. They were still exploring what they were saying.
Yeah.
It is only us in retrospect that we, label them as such.
Yeah, it's always been outsiders that have originated that label, whether it's outsiders at the time, which were not a part of the scene, or outsiders temporally, as we are now, looking back and then categorizing and giving shape to what was essentially an amorphous group of people who were gathering together because of similar interests and similar aesthetics, but forging their own thing. And that type of a group of people is always going to be very resistant to any imposition of a label that puts a limit. It's like, okay, you're a goth now, so you may have experimented to get here, but your experimentation stops now because you have to stay within this label that has been imposed.
I always felt like I never fit in anywhere, and I feel like a lot of other people feel the same within the goth subculture. I feel like this has been the only place I've ever really felt like I belonged, because I've always just been an outsider looking in. I've always just been an outsider anywhere. And I feel like we're all just kind of those outsiders, who come together.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I love that goth is going through this still. You said 2010. I do think that's when it started, and then it kind of changed maybe like 4 years ago. It's a little different now, but this sort of artistic renaissance period, or whatever you want to call it. I don't really like the term revival. I know William Faith has talked about this, but it's just the term revival sounds to me, I know goth has always been focused on remaking the past, but revival sounds too much like a kind of regurgitation of the past, like doing the thing that already was done, which is less interesting, I think.
Yeah, I'd say a resurgence is probably a little bit more a better term. A resurgence of the Gothic aesthetic and the attitude and that underlying impetus that made it rise in the first place. It's come back and it's flourishing again in a new creative medium rather than just like you said with revival, not just rehashing the old, but what created the old, that underlying thing that drove those first bands has come back and resurged into a new flowering of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I think if you look at the 90s and the mid 2000s, you had this kind of problem where goth became a stereotype and there wasn't a lot going on. So a lot of creative people didn't want to use the label because, like you were saying, Sean, it put you into a box, right? And they didn't want to be in that box. And I think now when you look at events like Cold Waves or Gothicat or Goths for Sanctuaries or whatever, all these things that are happening, and see what the streaming DJs and bands from all over the world are doing, a lot of people have much easier access into what's happening in the communities than you did before, because you don't have to take a night out of your time to go get the kind of local events, because not everybody can do that. So I think it's showing a lot of people how diverse this explosion of new music is that we've had in the scene for the last few years.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
And I think I said this before, but I think that's what a lot of people wanted to have in the 90s and 2000s, like of our age, to be that kind of successor of the 80s. Because you like what happened towards the end of the 80s is you had a lot of goth music going mainstream, and you had these string of chart hits from those foundational bands in England, and then the death rock scene in LA was kind of starting to disappear. I mean, well, according to Phantoms, a lot of that was due to like just drug use and people dying and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you had a lot of people like the like youth crowd moving out of goth into, I mean, it wasn't called goth, but whatever, into like alternative music or hard rock or acid house or techno or whatever. And then at the end of the 80s, you had all those key early bands split up or just completely change their sound, right? You start with who am I thinking of? Sex Gang Children,
or
sex cult, the cult, yeah, the cult from sex, yeah, whatever. The three band names. I've had too much beer. That's like the most depressing discography. Like hearing them go more and more cock rock or whatever. And then you had like, Nine Inch Nails in the 90s. You had Nine Inch Nails and like Marilyn Manson and even like Ministry.
Wax
I don't know,
Trax.
Jane's Addiction. Yeah, but like the more mainstream bands that were kind of took that subversive aesthetic of goth and made it more mainstream.
Yeah.
And you had like and then in the 90s you had people, second wave, third wave, whatever. People argue about how to define that.
Yeah.
But you did have people doing darker stuff, more different music. You had a lot of copycat sisters bands, which is funny. But there was some cool new stuff happening. But then again, at the end of the 90s, you had the same thing where you had Hot Topic and, well, okay, I mean, Hot Topic did have some authentic like goth comps. And
when it
and
first
stuff.
started, like in the late 90s, when I first went to one in Philadelphia, I mean, it was just a straight up goth shop. That's all that was in there. It was just like these long, black gowns and corsets and all kinds of cool
and
stuff.
shoes.
Now it's just completely unrecognizable.
Oh, it's all
now
skate
there's
punk
SpongeBob.
now.
Pop culture. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I mean, even in the, maybe mid-ish, but early 2000s, I mean, you did have goths were saying like complaining about Hot Topic being that sort of commodification of it's just a capitalistic thing. It's just it's like a costume kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you had Tim Burton and The Crow and then like we talked about already, you had the electronic coming back with cyber goth. I don't know how you two feel about the death rock revival in, what was that, 2003, 2004. That was kind of the backlash to the cyberpunk thing, but I felt like that wanted to be what we have now.
Yeah.
But it was
I agree.
too specific, too, like the sound was too niche and everything sounded the same.
Yeah, for sure.
And then more recently, but probably when we started the podcast, actually, you started to get like pastel goth and new goth trying to do something different, but then everybody got pissed off about that. So that didn't really go anywhere.
Well, that was the start of the goth as a fashion movement, because they didn't really have a sound to associate themselves with. I mean, they kind of, pastel goth would kind of glom onto your Switchblade Symphony and stuff like that. And
Perky goth.
Yeah. Pastel was basically just a rebranding of the Perkies from the 90s. And then New Goth didn't really have anything other than some of the witchier, just sort of pagan
like
stuff. Health Goth was, that was just a rebranding of Cyber Goth, really, with an exercise bent. But yeah, there was a lot of that was, they didn't have a sound to go with it, so it was hard for them to get traction in the greater goth scene as a movement, because they had just an aesthetic.
Yeah, that's what I felt like what steampunk was too.
There's steampunk bands, but I mean,
kinda. But I mean, can you?
But that came after.
Yeah, the fashion came, and then the bands went, "Oh, I'm going to be a steampunk band." And I mean, I like some of the steampunk bands, but my image was always, if I kind of wanted to make a steampunk band, but it would be like all clockwork instruments, like a clockwork drum machine and a steam powered synth, basically, that did a lot of hissing and clicking and stuff.
That's cool.
Of the actual machinery running,
I like that.
rather than what it was, which is a lot of gypsy and pirate themed stuff.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's why I'm so happy with what we have now, because I remember the dark ages of when steampunk was you want to do something a little different, I guess you can do steampunk. I was like, no, steampunk is garbage. What? Why is this even related to goth in any way? Right. So it's cool that it's just like, because I know we had Edward Stapleton of Nervous Gender on this show, but I've seen other bands from the 80s and do interviews where they talk about how they were surprised at the interest that young people had in the music they made in the 80s, and that kind of pushed them to look at what's going on now, and how surprised they were with how creative and exciting the new, like, all the bands that are coming out now is. And I think that's super cool. Like, I'm really happy about it.
There's so many bands coming out now. It's hard to keep up. It really is.
Oh yeah, Jesus.
Which is,
we're all fucking depressed too.
Yeah.
Which doesn't help.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it does help.
But it's amazing, and also, as far as the fashion goes, it's like goth fashion now is so easily accessible. You can get black lipstick anywhere. I remember back in the early 2000s, the black lipstick was like horrible, or black nail polish is like something you just didn't find that was worth a shit,
I had to buy it at Halloween stores to buy enough for the whole year, and it was still garbage.
Or like Hot Topics shitty makeup, like just chalk.
I just remember the early 2000s just being very stale musically. Like I didn't really buy much music. I mean, there are definitely exceptions, like Strange or Amazing, and I actually really love the Birthday Massacre, but I do feel like today's music is just a lot better than what it was, just early 2000s.
I was on the Birthday Massacre train for a couple albums, and after a while I was like, okay, this all sounds like the last album, and I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, but they did find their sound, I feel, that was just very much them, and they kept going at it, they didn't bother like really changing anything. But I don't know. I really dig it for what it is.
That's funny to think about that. I remember, what year was their first album? I remember at some point I sent the band an email asking if they were a Christian band, because that was important to me at the time, and they actually responded to it, and which was hilarious. But now I'm like, and now I've gone the other way, and I want Satan to put his huge cock inside me. But whatever.
99 was when they formed.
99. Oh yeah. Okay. Wow. Jesus. I feel so fucking old.
Oh yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, Trey. Sorry.
I was thinking the kids these days, like, their style is so good. With 18, 19, the young people, like, when I was 18, I remember being ugly as shit, but I was also like a crust punk and never showered and stuff like that. But I just feel like people look so cool these days. I don't know.
I mean, there's a massive volume of
yeah.
YouTube tutorials on how to do your hair and makeup and clothing options, and just all the stuff that you can learn nowadays, where it was all before just well, I know I get this mascara and this blush and these things, and I somehow slap it on my face, and we'll see what happens.
I used to look at a picture of Susie Sue and hope for the best, practice and contouring. I didn't do that. I was like a white egg for most my early 20s.
Watching RuPaul changed my game.
Oh, me too.
It changed my game.
Drag queens, I mean, that's how makeup, like women's makeup trends were actually started by drag queen contouring and highlighting and stuff. And we didn't have YouTube back then, and you just kind of look busted, but
well, yeah, I mean, I was never a crust punk, but I had friends and occasionally hung out with people that were crust punks and would squat and do all that kind of stuff.
Eat out of dumpsters.
Dumpster diving and yeah.
Gotta love the freegan movement.
But they somehow always had, I guess everybody had the one pair of patch pants, right?
Oh yeah, they were just falling apart, and we're just I remember my old jacket. My friend's rat got out in our punk house that we all lived at, and her rat got out and had babies with another rat, and there were babies everywhere. And they started eating my jacket, and there was this big hole in my jacket, and I still wore it. Oh my gosh,
punk house.
And you would touch the posters on the walls, and roaches would just fly out of it. And good times, man.
Yeah, one of the places my friend stayed in was condemned eventually because it was full of black mold.
Yeah.
And the way that they took a shower in, it was a closet, and they just had like a plastic bag they would fill with cold water, and you would just squirt yourself, and you had to put towels on the floor because there was no drainage, so it would just the water would go everywhere.
Wow.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's like the young ones. Big hole in the ceiling and just fall right through.
Like 2010, that whole year, I don't think I showered more than maybe 12 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like my brain is so fried. It's hard for me to remember all my timelines. I don't remember a lot of the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah. I never was able to understand or process time like everyone else. I think because I have ADHD, but I was always over or underestimating time, or my memory sucks. But now especially, time has absolutely no meaning at all with everything going on. So.
Yeah, I have a good long-term memory from 15 years ago, but what did you say 5 minutes ago? I can't remember that.
Yeah, I basically just exist in right now, and that's all that is happening.
Yeah.
Live in the now, man.
Live in the now, man. Right here, right now, bro. Right here, right now.
I did want to get your thoughts on the sort of undying argument around gatekeeping versus accessibility versus focus on music or fashion, and sort of ask if you feel like there's a problem with goth being too closed off, or maybe not closed off enough.
I feel like we need gatekeeping. I mean, we need that to keep our subculture sacred, if you will.
Just a little,
just a little,
as a treat.
Yeah. But I feel like it's pretty. I don't think it's closed off that much. I mean, the real MFers, the real people will stick around. You
can swear.
The real motherfuckers will stick around. And you can. I love new people coming into the scene, and I embrace them, and I like young girls and guys and non-binary, anybody in between. Them coming in. I want to be kind to them and show them the love that I wasn't shown. So I try to be so overly nice to everybody, but you'll see, the people that really want to be around will stay around, but who am I to say that you're not going to stick around? So I'm not going to shun you,
Right. Yeah.
It's definitely important to be, nice and friendly to newcomers always, and just be respectful. I think what's really different about these times, and you see it like just all over social media, is just how many people will dress the part,
Yeah.
but they're not, they don't really like, I guess,
The music.
yeah, like either the music or even just really respect the culture itself. It's just more of like a dress up thing.
Well, it's like on the episode with Scary Lady Sarah you had recently, and Nat, I love Nat. You know, Scary Lady Sarah was like, if you don't listen to goth music, you're not goth, like point blank, period. You know, it's like some people are, you know, they're more, the younger generation are more welcoming, like, oh yeah, you can be aesthetic, you know, and not listen to music. But it's like at the end of the day, if you don't listen to the music, you know, you're not goth.
Yeah, I mean, it is the music. The fashion was
genre.
just a byproduct of the music. But since, you know, the fashion's really taken hold, and, you know, when it gets popular, people really run with it.
Like girls that bullied me in high school are like, you know, buying Killstar and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I mean, I won't go on too long because I've talked about this so much on the podcast, but I will say, at least in my personal opinion, I feel like at least a large chunk of that can just be attributed to younger kids that get into it as a trend and then filter out over a year. But the problem is that there's always new people, so it feels like it's a constant like threat. But it's just new kids, and then they disappear, and it's like if you just ignore them, they they just go away on their own, and then there's new people, and then they go away on their own, you know?
Yeah.
Because I feel like goth has been like, I feel like it's pretty resilient because we've been through Columbine, we talked about new goth and pastel goth and health goth and ghetto goth and whatever the fuck, like it. And I know scenes die and come back, and that ebb and flow is always there, but I feel like it's. Sometimes people overblow it to think that goth is going to disappear or whatever. And not that you're saying that, but I think that it's important to talk about this stuff, but I don't feel like goth is going to be become a fashion trend.
No. I don't even think there's anything wrong with a lot of people just, you know, dressing the part, because it really does keep us visible.
Yeah.
You know, people are more aware that our culture exists, you know, and I think it would draw more of the right people in that are going to be in it for the long haul.
And there's more of like a positive, there's more positivity towards it, you know, like as back, you know, not even 15 years ago, people are still getting called freak and
beat up
and made fun of and killed. And nowadays it's like with like Gen Z, like I always say, like I love Gen Z, you know, they're so accepting and
they're dope as fuck.
Dude, they're badass and they go against the status quo and they stand up for what's right, and I love it, you know. And it's just really nice to have, you know, countercultures not be as taboo, I guess, and as feared. You know, there's not as much ignorance as there used to be. I mean, there still are ignorant fucks out there. I got laughed at work the other day about this piece, you know, whatever. But, you know, it's nice to not, you know, walk down the street and be scared you're going to get heckled or beat up or something, you know?
Yeah, getting laughed, I still remember, I think this was a couple of years ago now, but my spouse and I walked into a bakery. I don't remember what I was wearing. I know I had my hair up, but I walked in and the employee, who was like a middle-aged woman, looked at me and just started laughing. And I was like, okay, I guess that's still a thing. All right, whatever. And then we just left. I was like, fuck that. Like, goodbye. But yeah.
The other, like a few months ago, it was like before lockdown, I was outside cleaning a table and this man goes, ah! He goes, you scared me. He's like, you look like a daywalker. I said, you better watch out. I'll suck your blood. You know, like, I always feel like my day is not over until I've scared somebody.
I would say that's definitely more of the reaction that I always get. I usually always scare people.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, I think it's just because I'm really tall, so people don't really like mess with me. all that much, but I'll just be standing there and someone will walk by and they just get real scared, and it's always pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, see, because I'm also I'm very introverted, so in general I just don't want to be noticed, but I also realize that I look fucking ridiculous, right? So it's a pain.
Yeah, I mean, I would love nothing more than to just dress how I would really love to dress, and just be ignored by everybody. If they
don't perceive me.
Yeah, it's like,
don't look at me.
I'm just as weird as anybody else. Like, don't even bother me.
And, you know, I did a social experiment at work. And, like, when we first went back, I was like, just piece of shit. Like, just like plain egg human, just going to work, no makeup, my hair down, you know. And people treated me different. Like, but when I have my, you know, when I'm dressed up, because where I work, they encourage you to be weird, you know, which is awesome.
Oh, nice.
Like, my manager, my GM, he's always like, he always makes sure I'm looking as goth as possible. He's like, you're not looking goth today, Mary. I'm like, well, I'm always this way. But like, I notice like whenever I'm dressed up, people are more scared of me and like more threatened. So they're like nicer, you know, kind of.
Okay. Right.
I'm like 5'1".
I just find people try to sell me drugs more often.
You know, that never happens.
I usually get people asking me if I can sell them drugs, not the other way around.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You look like a guy that sells drugs.
Yeah.
You look like you're fucked out of your mind.
Have hair like that, you must be. Pride. I've noticed like goth people are like more of the, you know, they don't, pretty good people, you know, got their head on their shoulders pretty well. That's so known as the punk rockers are the ones you gotta look out for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Album review.
We are going to be reviewing the new album from The Funeral Medieval. From their Bandcamp page, they say they're a post-punk and gothic rock project from Mexico City with the peculiarity of mixing guttural death rock voices and French cold wave and unchained bass that covers the entire atmosphere that at times reaches the danceable, something differentiated and could be said evolved within the world dark scene. What can someone explain to me what an unchained bass is? I should have looked this up, but
Detra.
Unchained bass.
I mean, I can give an answer. I don't know if it's the one they mean though. As far as I can tell, their tracks were just drowning in bass, so they were not terribly well balanced. So it was really bass heavy. But as they say, not especially dancey, but it does get into a little bit of danciness there, here and there. I mean, it was pretty punk dancey.
It's like the chicken dance. Chicken dance.
It was very clearly punk dancey because they were a punk rhythm pretty much flat out for almost every track, except for the couple like organ solos.
The back and forth dance is a good for Funeral Medieval.
Yeah.
In one line.
I thought it might be like a music production thing.
I mean,
I don't know.
Kind of is.
All right. Well, anyway, it's not.
Yeah,
important.
I don't know. I don't think there's a technical term.
Like Unchained, is that a production
term?
Of. Yeah, I don't know. All right, so let's. I play a track on the album. I'm not going to play it. I'll put it in post. I thought, unless anybody has a really strong opinion, I thought maybe just the first track would be the best one.
I love Raw. That's a great track.
That's a great track.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to play Raw.
face, acting back, give me soul, I'm the soul, every side, give me soul, I'm the soul, up on film, the same place, in the fire, in the crystal, in the fire, on the rock, disco light, at the rock, make the rock, it's for rock. This for life. I'm so spiked, acting back, give me soul, I'm the soul, every side, give me soul, I'm the soul, up on top, the same place, in the fire, in the crystal, in the fire, of the rock, this for life, of the rock.
I think it was really great.
Great album.
Like it was said earlier, it's very, punk dancey.
We bought it immediately.
Yeah,
it was only like $5 too, right?
Yeah. It sounds like it was just recorded on an 8-track in some cemetery or something.
Which is
it was
great.
Just,
yeah.
Which
it's
I
just
love.
really great, just very lo-fi, I enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of funny how every single song is like exactly 2 minutes long.
Nope.
Yeah.
But the whole album throughout is really good. I mean, I wrote down some songs that kind of stuck out raw. Malheur, Yaotsin, Ansiedad, Depression, and Odio. Those are all I really like those tracks.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I thought the album was really cohesive, I guess, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Yeah.
I love it. I think we play Funeral Medieval like most streams,
Yeah, lately. We've been playing it a lot lately. Pretty good.
Yeah.
Nice.
Love it. Love.
Yeah, any other thoughts? I don't want to interrupt you.
No, that's...
No?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so for me, like this kind of grew on me, and I feel like you're going to have to be into a specific kind of music to really like this.
For sure.
I think the thing that most people are going to run into are the vocals, because like if just right from the first track, it's not like normal goth vocals. You're going to realize like, okay, something different is going on here.
Yeah.
And I think people are going to
vocals.
love it or hate it,
Yeah.
I feel it's kind of like a tight rope to walk, because you can go, I mean, it can be too cheesy, because like I feel like She Passed Away is too cheesy for me, the vocals. But I feel like on this album they go so fucking hard on the vocals that it kind of circles around and goes from silly to spooky. So it's like so serious that you have to take it. It's not like, oh, I'm laughing at you because it's so serious. It's like, I'm taking you serious because it's like Blue Dangle. Like people laugh about that band because they take themselves too seriously, and it's a joke band.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just kind of works for me with this album.
I understand what you're saying. Like it's almost kitschy. I mean, it is kitschy, but like good. I like.
And as far as the music, it's good. They have this mix of goth rock and dark wave, and obviously punk, but also I thought dungeon synth as well. And there's some black metal sensibilities, because you brought up the low fidelity aspect of it. And I think that that combination makes it unique, as kind of sets it apart as its own band and makes it interesting.
Definitely.
Usually I have some kind of comparisons, and I don't think I can readily compare this album to anything else.
No.
There's even some like it's vaguely industrial sounds in there with like the synth stuff, but I really like the spookiness of, I mean, at least to me, I felt like there was inspiration from dungeon synth that brings that like, oh, it was recorded in a cemetery sound.
Yeah.
That you said
on
right?
a pair of headphones. Like
I love all the organ parts. I mean, it's just great. I love all the cheesiness.
And the Funeral Medieval sounds like a black metal band. I mean, that's like a black metal band name.
Yeah.
It should be played during like old Scooby-Doo episodes. I think it would be perfect.
Yeah.
So good.
Goth tracks that are, when you think of spooky goth tracks, it's generally like slow and plodding, like dirge-like sounds. And this is more, it has that, it's not slow and creeping. It has that, because I mean, they're all really high BPM, but it's like that hammer horror 80s, like video game organ sound that you get from dungeon synths, that it's like that Halloween horror film aesthetic kind of thing, which is fun and can also be spooky in its own way. And I think it gets more and more dungeon synth the farther you get into the album as well, which is fun. And if anybody listening doesn't know what that is, I think the best
Mortis.
example I usually give, Mortis, obviously, yeah. I usually say Crypt of Carmilla, because a friend of mine, that's a friend of mine's band, and that his 2 albums are, I think, really, really good.
Yeah, I've heard them. Yeah, they're really great.
But overall, I wasn't sure how I felt about it at first, but it really grew on me, and I really like the album. And it goes fast, and like you said, I think it's cohesive and interesting the whole way through. So
I liked it immediately. I thought it was really good and different.
All right, Trey, are you going to piss in our Cheerios? Or
Yeah, pretty much.
How do you feel about this?
I mean, not piss in your Cheerios, because I have no interest in yucking your yum, but I'm not necessarily a huge punk fan, personally, especially this was what I found interesting about this band, and also very frustrating about the band, was every song started with a really strong idea, and like a really cool riff or a really good combination of sounds, and then didn't go anywhere with it. It was a simple repeated loop of that same riff. They maybe move it up a fourth or down a half step to be varying it a little bit. But I didn't find a lot of motion or interest, and then I couldn't really get over the production. I'm not a lo-fi fan. I like to be able to hear all the instruments. So the fact that it was so bass heavy, I didn't appreciate the Unchained bass as much as I like bass in general. I find it was just, instead of being just powerful bass, it was just kind of muddy. I couldn't really tell where the bass drums and the bass guitars and the vocals, they were all kind of mashed together and were hard to distinguish. I liked the vocals in that I found them to be unique. It was a unique voice that this band has, where I've complained a lot on other bands because the vocals are they're aping Peter Murphy, or they're aping Andrew Eldritch, or, they all just seem to sound like somebody else. And it's like, you need to find your own thing. The only thing I didn't like about them, though, as much as they were unique, they weren't necessarily very expressive. I like the vocals that change and give me a feel with how the song is trying to express something, where this was, and this is the thing with a lot of goth rock too, is it's a very monotone presentation. It was a very chanty dirge-like, but it didn't quite have the cadence of an actual chant. So it was kind of a chanted, almost spoken word. Didn't help that I couldn't really make them out either. Not even, I don't know if they were speaking, if the language was actually Spanish. I don't think any of it was English. But I couldn't make out words in either. And I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I can usually make out Spanish. And I couldn't really make out any of the words at all, which doesn't necessarily bother me. I love the Cocteau Twins and all that, but I don't need to have lyrics that I can understand. But it was just another element that, could have maybe gotten me into it that wasn't there. It was just sort of it was an interesting vocal timbre, but very monotone presentation. They did have, I think, one song where they broke out of that, and I think they had a female singer in one at some point too, which was an interesting change of pace. But overall, and I also have a really pet peeve around fade outs at the end of songs. And
just stop.
Every track faded.
It just stops.
Well, there was one or two tracks towards the second half that I think it felt like it just like it was cut off, like the MP3 file was cut off.
That could be.
Which was disconcerting. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite track is probably the one that is the one that's this. One of these things is not like the other, which was the Ansiedad, which was pretty much the organ solo. But that showed a lot more musical breadth, and it wasn't just take this riff on the keyboard and play this 4 or 5 riff over and over and over again, and maybe move it up a half step or down a half step or something to vary it up. So it wasn't really grabbing me, but a lot of it is, I'm not a big fan of the very simple lo-fi 2-minute punk song aesthetic. I tend to be more into the uber excesses of post-punk and prog rock and all those weird, extra complicated, ridiculous things. So
what was this? Somebody? Sorry,
I was going to say, I think this is a great album for people who are interested in that thing. And I'm not going to say it's a bad album, because I think it does that very well, but that is not my style. So personally, it wasn't my thing.
Yeah. Somebody shared a meme the other day that was it was a photo, it was some cartoon, and then they drew over it crust punk musicians, and one person was on keyboard. They were asking the guitar player what key are we in, and the guitar player was like, no, we don't do that here. So it's just how it goes.
On the plus side, it was very easy for me to pick out those fun riffs on my keyboard and play along. So I mean, there was that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the whole sound was just very intentional, and just how it was very presented. Every song was just like a quick bit. It was like a little episode,
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think that's what they were going for.
For me, it was one of those albums that I can listen to the whole thing and not skip a track, because I thought every track was really good. But I also love punk, so
I agree. I also thought every track was good. There wasn't usually when I do reviews, I'm like, oh, this is my favorite track, and this track I didn't like for these reasons, and I didn't really have that with this album. So, all right, well, let's close off with our Sinister Suggestions.
So you've got to be interested in death. It's the last great taboo. It's the only taboo left.
Precisely. I mean, why is it, do you think, that everyone in here is dressed in black? It's a celebration of death.
No, I just like the clothes.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, the clothes look good. Yeah, I mean, death looks good. Charles Manson, yeah? No, he was cool.
Don't know if I mentioned it before, but I'm actually a vampire.
Sinister Suggestions.
I've been listening to. Unfortunately, I don't see a lot of movies or anything, but of course, I've been listening to a lot of music. Stuff I've been listening to lately has been the new Angels Arcana album, which I think is really amazing. It's very slow paced, just like sort of chill gothic rock. And if you like that sort of thing, it's an amazing album, like the whole thing. I've been listening to new Isotropia. The new Cellophane album's pretty amazing.
Oh yeah,
so good.
Yeah.
There's a new band called Slow Dance with the Dead. I've been really enjoying his debut album.
They're so good.
And did just a few tracks from the new Delphine Coma album I've been really enjoying.
Mine are mostly bands too. Like Detra said, Slow Dance with the Dead. Oh, it's so good. The new album, or their album. Black Angel, I think I said that earlier. I've been obsessed. Kiss of Death is his album, and I just ordered it. It's so good. Exit Dust from Florida, like super kind of death rock punk, very rudimentary P9.
It's so good. Yeah,
very so good. And then Dark from Germany.
Oh yeah, new band.
Such a nice person, and I feel like they're an upcoming band.
Yeah, he just signed Young and Cold Records, so his new album should drop.
I love I love those bands. Like, people say there's no obscurity in the age of the internet, but how the fuck are you going to Google Dark?
Yeah, I know.
Like, I love those bands.
Right?
They're like, So, I think there was a band in the 90s called Gothic Girls. It's like, okay, how am I supposed to find your music?
And then Insepulto from Colombia. Oh my gosh, really good. I just kind of got in them the other day, but really good. And they're from, I think, Russia. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. AYT, or Russian letters. 8. Really dark wave. And then DGA 95 really getting into.
That's great. Not constantly, every once in a while I'll see comments about the podcast from people not in America bitching and moaning about how stupid we are as Americans because we only talk about, and it's like every time I try and pronounce a German band or whatever, I sound like a fucking moron. So it's fine. Whatever.
Well, and then like when people we've been playing a lot of like Russian bands, and it's like they're like, "What is this band?" And we're like, "I can't tell you. I don't know.
just look at it.
I don't know who this band is.
Listen and enjoy, because I can't say it.
Yeah, copy and paste it because I don't know.
I mean, that is an advantage of the Twitch streams, I guess, because you can just put it in the chat, where you couldn't do that when they come up to you at the DJ booth.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, we have our little thingy that shows each song.
Yeah.
Yeah. when people come ask for the Russian bands, we're like, I don't
just
know.
be like, I can't tell you because I would summon a demon if I did. So let's.
It's a DJ
sorry.
secret.
So mine, y'all are overachievers. I only had one band to recommend. I was gonna mention Wisteria and their new album Never Waved, which is like a really enjoyable sort of retro 80s dark wave kind of sound, but they add some more disco and synthwave mixed in, and it's heavier on the 80s aspect of it, like kind of how, not in the same way, but how the most recent Double Echo album was really like, this is very 80s kind of sound. So it's noticeably different from other bands in a similar vein like Drab Majesty, and I think that's really cool because, like, much like with the Funeral Medieval, it stands out in a similar genre, but it's different. So that was what I was going to recommend. And then if I wanted to throw something else in, I guess I would mention what the hell is it? Carnival Row. I've only watched the first 3 episodes, so I can't really review it, but it has Orlando Bloom in it, and it's like a fantasy it's like a fantasy TV show in the vein of, it's sort of like 1800s London, except there are trolls and pixies and magic and shit going on. So I've really enjoyed that.
Oh, cool. I haven't heard of that one.
I started watching Ratchet today. I don't know if you're on Netflix.
I don't know what that is.
It's what's his name that does American Horror Story?
Oh, okay.
It's really good. It's really good.
I don't like American Horror Story.
Okay.
Is that all seasons? Because I heard that. I mean, I haven't watched any of it, but I heard that some people love seasons X, Y, and
every
Z,
season they're like,
then the later seasons are like, oh no, it's terrible. So some people are very.
So like, I watched most of the first season, and I've seen a few episodes of the others. The first season, it starts, and I was really into it. I was like, I have no idea what the fuck is happening. It's super dark. But then a few episodes in, it just turns into a soap opera. And I was like, I just don't care anymore. I watched half of Coven, and even that, I got halfway through, and I was just like, I just don't care anymore.
Well, Cult was good. Cult was.
Oh, that's the like super
political one.
Yeah.
That's good.
But I don't judge anyone because I really liked not Vampire Diaries. What was it called? The Originals, which was like a Vampire Diaries spinoff, which is a CW shitty vampire show. So whatever, man. Like, enjoy what you enjoy. I don't care. Trey, what do you got?
So I'm going to go all off topic here and go with a bunch of not so much goth stuff. I've been really enjoying the TV show Halt and Catch Fire, which is
I've heard of it.
A pretty good show about sort of it's a like the Mad Men was for advertising in the 60s. This is sort of for computing, early computing, PCs, and home computing in the 80s.
Oh yeah.
So kind of the first season is the birth of sort of the home computer, the individual PC. So trying to break out of IBM's stranglehold. And then later is the second and third season are probably more interesting because that's more the birth of online social media chat with BBSs, and then sort of the birth. We're getting hints in third season now of the birth of the nascent internet and stuff like that. So it's a lot of 80s stuff too, 80s music, a little bit of punk stuff happening, a little new wave stuff. So it's a lot of that, but it's mostly around the computer industry in the 80s, which it's been really good. I've been really enjoying it. And, the second and third season are also focusing on a entirely female fronted computer company or computer service providing type thing. So there's a lot of that sort of gender dialogue as well in there, which is pretty cool. So I've been really enjoying that.
Yeah, sorry, I keep interrupting. I've had too many beers. There's a female. I don't remember the character's name, but one of the primary characters is basically a
Cameron,
punk, an 80s
Cameron's,
punk.
Total
yeah,
punk.
and she's cool as hell.
She's a hardcore, hard school or old school programmer and video game geek. And she starts the first episode, you meet her and she's playing Centipede ad nauseum by having a quarter on a string and just putting it in and taking it out and playing over and over her Centipede while listening to punk music.
She gets a poke in what are those called, the needle, like single needle poke, old school tattoos. She's in this like drunken
stick and poke.
party. Yeah, stick and poke tattoo. It's pretty cool. There's cool stuff.
So, yeah.
There.
That's been on for like a little while, right? It's
It's on like
how many
fourth season,
seasons?
I think now. I'm on the third season. I think there are 4 seasons total. And I think it's done. I don't think it's still going. I'm catching it in reruns basically, but I've been really enjoying it. And then from a musical standpoint,
where do you watch it? Where can you watch it?
I think it's on Netflix, right?
Okay.
I'm not going to say how I get it, but it's an AMC show. It's an AMC show, but yeah, I get it online.
Yeah. On the
internet
that it's talking about.
The internet.
It's streaming.
I buy a VHS copy from someone in the back alley.
Exactly. And then from a musical standpoint, I'm really been enjoying the band Clipping, which is it's a rap act, but the producers behind it are a film score artist and a noise artist. So they're doing the background track. And then the MC is David Diggs, who is now most well known as the main person who did Lafayette and Jefferson in Hamilton. So a very technical and very political rapper over basically sort of noise and industrially type beats. So I've been really enjoying that sort of mix of genre. So that's a band I think that's worth checking out.
Political rapper. Love it.
Yeah, agreed. My first point of reference for Lafayette was the character from True Blood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love Lafayette.
That's fair. I loved Lafayette too.
Lafayette's the best. Oh man,
not the only good character in that show, but one of them, or a few.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap. So, can y'all? I mean, I know you have Twitch, which I'll have linked. Is there anywhere else that you want to send people other than Twitch to check out your stuff?
We have our Instagram. We just started, the Sisters of Mondays, and you can just see us posting updates and stuff, in our Facebook, obviously, and
lots of pics and
Facebook, yep.
Updates. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like Facebook, Instagram, and then our stream every Monday.
Yeah, and you can
Awesome.
Us on Instagram, Mary Millions and DJ Detra. And tomorrow, actually, we just recorded for Die in the Disco Volume 2 with Yami Specchi. Yami?
Oh, yeah,
DJ?
I know who that is.
And that's going to be premiering tomorrow on their YouTube channel. So,
oh, nice.
Yeah, we're very excited.
Yeah,
about
it's all
that.
new music too, like stuff that just came out this year. Just a lot of the really great stuff that came out this year.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much. This was a lot of fun. Thank you both for hanging out. This was really a pleasure.
Thank you
I just
so
want
much.
to say, like, I'm a big fan of your show. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you invited us on. Love all the topics you talk about, and I've always wanted to join in
We're
the
honored.
conversation. Yeah, it's very
Well,
interesting.
thank you. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
I'm glad you could
Big fans.
join.
You're both way cooler than that.
I
What?
said I'm glad you can both join, and you had some
yeah.
good insights into some of the topics that we do discuss.
Definitely.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Had a lot of fun.
We love you guys, so we're
Oh,
feel
thank
very
you.
honored, and I feel like I just talk like an idiot all the time. So.
No.
I think we all feel that about ourselves most of the time.
I think, yeah. That's right. Nothing matters. We're all gonna die. Who gives a shit?
Pretty much,
Yeah,
if you have
very
anything important
true.
to say, you feel like you sound like an idiot. If you don't have anything
Yeah.
important to say, you
Yeah.
might think you're really clever.
Yeah, that you are so right, Trey. Oh my gosh.
You're so clever, Trey. I don't think you
So
have
I have
anything
nothing
important to say.
say.
What a lovely episode that was. I really hope that you had a wonderful Halloween. I know I mentioned this during the episode, I get accused by goths outside of the US for focusing too much on American politics. But it is, as of this episode going up, tomorrow will be election day. And it has never been more important than this year to vote. So I know it seems obvious and a bit silly for this audience, but if you haven't voted, please go vote. And I hope that we aren't waking up to a dystopia later in November. I have begun planning sort of what we're doing for next year. there will be more information on Patreon. But we will be continuing to have guests from outside of the U.S. on the podcast. For those of you that listen, you know that we fairly often have guests on that don't live in the U.S., and I'm going to continue that into the next year. Speaking of Patreon, I've been focusing a bit more on that recently. As I mentioned, since we are moving the shows back to one per month, at least for the foreseeable future, I've been trying to put more time and effort into Patreon. So if you check out Patreon, we've got a few new exclusive videos on there. There's going to be another video released on the 16th of this month in place of what would normally be a full episode. I've got some other goodies planned up as well. I don't really want to spoil them yet. I've been more active in Discord. We've been trying to get together some game nights to play Phasmophobia with a few Patreon members. So if you want to check those videos out or look at the extra content or get some merch, that kind of stuff, head over to patreon.com/Cemetery Confessions, and you can just see the list of rewards that you would get for supporting us. And of course, I am eternally grateful for all of you beautiful, beautiful people who do support us on Patreon. And that is why, before I let you know what we're doing next month, I'm going to thank our Patreon members. So at the founders level, we have Abigail, Esmeralda, Junkyard Bat, SJ, and Samantha. So thank you all so much for your support. It really means everything. That's why the show exists. At the Nocturnal Council level, we have Amy, Azzy, Christine, Dawn, Felina, Fifth Dream, I Am Ruin, Jen, Carly, Michelle, Skullgirdle, Mike Mess, Moses, Natalie, Sav, Sebastian, Top Down Tom, and Jacob. Thank you all so much for your support. And please forgive my voice. The allergies are really kicking my ass today. And then at the Crow's Call level, we have Alana, Alex Grufty, Alex, Anna, Anne, Ava, Becca, Bruce, the other half of We Have a Technical, Cadaver Kelly on YouTube, Kel, Dagger Dance of Club Nevermore on Twitch, David, Death Metal Kumbaya, Dom, who has been a longtime supporter from Australia, Dry as Shy, Eduardo, Enya, Esther, Eternal Winter on YouTube, GPS, Gateway Goth Events, Gendalis, Heather, Isabel, JL, JD, Jan, Jason, John Bean, Jennifer, Keen, Kelly, Kevin, Laura, Laurel, Leah, Lewis, Lindsay, Marissa, Martin, Megan, Morella, Morgan, Nia, Nick, Novalin, Paul, Rebecca, Richard, Orion of Witch Hands, Sarah, Stewart, Susan, Stolas, Two Broke Goths on YouTube, Wicked, Wolfie, Jonathan, Mark, Messy Toy Box, and The Ghost Pony. Thank you all so much for your support. So next month, we are going to be returning with, you guessed it, the Gothquisition. And we even have some juicy, exciting bonus content from the Gothquisition coming to Patreon. I'm not going to announce that yet as it's not set in stone, but it will be on, I'll mention it on that episode. And then I should also mention, just because this won't really fit into the Gothquisition episode, but in January, the following month, there will be no Cemetery Confessions episode. That is when we take our annual hiatus, take a little break, take a breather, get our plans and notes started and ready for the coming year. That's when I start reaching out to people and getting sort of outlines and doing research and things like that for the next year together. So if you are going to be missing that content, I understand. Everyone who is on Patreon will be available to access our Patreon-only hangout. We do this every year where I pop on, I think this year we're going to be using Zoom, but I will pop it on for a good 5 or 6 hours And anyone and everyone who's a Patreon member is welcomed to hang out and chat in a big clusterfuck of a group chat, have some drinks, and spend the evening together. So that is what we have coming up for the end of the year. So thank you so much for listening. It really was a pleasure to hang out with you. And until next time, stay dark.
The preceding program is a member of The Belfry, a network of blogs, podcasts, and videos for the darkly inclined. Go to thebelfry.rip for more information.